evening, guys. Welcome back to our vlog. This is the part 2 of Brandon's testimony, and we're gonna go ahead and get started so we won't waste time. So we stopped where Brandon found out that his dad had cancer. Go ahead.
Okay, and just bringing it up to date, I was at Camp Agape, and that was 98. I think that was 90. It was between 98 and 99. So they called me into the office. I found out that my dad has cancer and had a brain tumor. So, you know, that was just devastating. I didn't know how to handle it, and as you remember in the testimony, you know, I just run from my problems, and since, you know, drugs and alcohol was what I had found is what always seemed to make me feel better, that's what I ran to. And so after I found that out, I can't remember if I went straight back home or not, because I do remember being at camp and running away from camp and actually finding myself right back into drugs and alcohol. But I know when I went back home, you know, already in the 90s, both grandmothers had died, and one of them that I was most partial to, and now my dad's died. So I mean, I'm devastated. I'm spiraling out of control, and that one just really put the icing on the cake. So I just began to really get deeper and deeper and run further. Now it's you know, drugs and alcohol is serious, but now I was just going to another level that was very serious, and it was destroying my life. I'm staying away from home longer, because after I'd come back, I didn't want to face my dad. I didn't want to watch him dying. I didn't want to watch him being sick, and he's having seizures, and he's laying in the floor turning pale, and you know, all that. I didn't want to be there. I should have been there to, you know, pray for him, comfort him.
To help your mom too.
Yeah, and to be with my mom, and instead, I chose the other way and just ran further. And so, you know, after I'm back home, I'm back and forth. I'm leaving home, and now I'm staying gone days at a time. And I know that's hard on them, and not realizing that that's what drugs and alcohol will do. And any sin just makes me, you know, it was just about me, and I didn't mean to be selfish, but you know, I just cared about being high and just trying to hide those emotions and feelings so I didn't have to look at it. So I just began to stay away days.
Is that when your mom started like looking for you at bars?
Yeah. So sometimes I'd be gone up to a week, and then I remember one time it became, you know, a week and a half, 2 weeks. And sometimes I would get up the nerve because I didn't like to contact home, because, you know, after I'd had an experience with God, now I'm like so guilty, so convicted. My conscience is eating me alive, and so I didn't want to face the problem. So I just sometimes would avoid phone calls, any kind of contact. I was just trying to run from it, and sometimes it would eat me up so bad I'd finally call home and just let her know I was okay. But
in that time, I know you shared with me several times that there was several occasions that someone pointed something.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to remember.
But was it that time though? Did that happen?
It was in the 90s.
Did that happen while your dad was sick? In those events?
Yes, I believe so, because I know my dad one time come and found me, and you know, I don't mind just sharing all some of the details. I mean, I was in a crack house, and you know, if anybody out there is familiar with a crack house, I mean,
share it.
I'm bony. I'm getting to where I am obsessed with getting high. So it has cost me my health. I'm skinny. You can see my ribs. I don't shave. I got on the same clothes for weeks, and you know, I'm living in a crack house and in the worst just drug area of town. And so I remember one time that I had went home and I got clean, you know, and that's how I would do it. I'd go home, get clean, I'd get fed, gain some weight, then I'd right back out there and do it again. So I'd gotten home, got clean, everything's good, and I'll never forget how my parents always spoiled me, and they would do kind of like the prodigal son, you know, he's back home, and so they would, you know, bless me and, you know, buying me things, taking me out to eat, you know, and you know, they did that from the love of their heart, but at the same time they knew that it was just feeding that habit, giving me money. So I remember that one time I'm driving a sports car. I got a red BMW. I got jewelry, I got rings on my fingers, and I got a necklace and all this stuff, and you know, I thought I was cool. But I also had a habit of selling stuff and pawning things and stealing, and
even your shoes, right?
Yeah. And so even though I'm clean at this particular time, I remember I went, and I can't remember where I went, but I was wrestling. I knew I had good intentions to go and just cruise town or whatever, but I found myself being pulled and drawn by my own flesh, and I just knew, well, I'll just ride over this area. In the back of my mind, I knew where I was going.
Yeah.
So I wound up back in Cracktown again, and I get over there. First thing I do, take the little money I got and start buying drugs, start getting high. I wind up back at this guy's house that I knew, back in the crack house again. I didn't want nobody to find me, so I go hide my car behind the apartment. While I'm there, and I do want to share this just to let you know that even though I was in sin, even though I was doing wrong, how God takes care of those who, even though at that time I didn't know the purpose that He had for my life, how He'll take care of those He has a calling on. And so I'm up in this apartment, and the guy who's renting the apartment, I never knew or thought that he would turn his back on me or ever do something like he did. They knew that I had money, and they knew I had jewelry, and they knew I had a nice car. And
those
so
were your friends.
Yeah, so-called acquaintances. And so next thing you know, I'm sitting there on the couch. I didn't know until later that I found out that somebody told me that the guy who run the little apartment there, because that's what I'm gonna say, he ran it because it was like a crack house. He had went and told somebody, I guess to just kind of scare me a little bit, so that they could get my jewelry and stuff, and you know, anything that I had, so that they could use it and turn around to buy their own drugs and get high. So I'm sitting there on the couch, and I saw this giant of a guy come walking in, and I'm 6'2". This guy's like, I guess, almost a foot taller than me. And he's got this little short guy with him, and they kind of walk in like looking around and acting like everything's, you know, just like they just there just to see him, just hanging out. Next thing you know, he just keeps kind of swagging back and forth and walks over closer to me, and next thing you know, he pulls out a gun, puts it right up to my head. Now you talking about life. I turn pale, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm shaking. Life is passing before me, and I think, man, this could be it right here. In my mind, I'm sitting there, you know, I'm praying. I'm like, oh God. And all he did was say, give me your jewelry. And so I'm sitting there trying to pull my bracelet off. I got a bracelet that cost like $500. Necklace cost as much, if not more. So I'm sitting there having a hard time trying to get it off. He said, I'm gonna shoot you if you don't get it off. So man, I'm sitting there praying and sweating, help me get this thing off. And so finally it did come off. Jerked my necklace off, I gave them to him. And thank God he turned around. And you know, I was still, that spirit of fear was there. I'm like,
but that's
he's
also,
gonna walk out that door and he's gonna turn around and still shoot me.
That's also your mama's prayers, you know.
And also mama's prayers.
You know,
and
your
so
mom pray for you all the time.
that's exactly right. And so he walks out the door and keeps on going. And
but did you learn your lesson?
I'm sitting there thinking, he's gonna come back, he's gonna come back. And he never did. But that's when later on I found out that that was a setup. He was only there to scare me, to take my jewelry. And that's just kind of mess you get in when you're living the wrong way. And that was, you know, the choice that I made. And I was trapped by the enemy. And but no, I didn't learn my lesson. You would think with something that serious happening that it would scare me out of that situation. But yeah, for a little while, you know, who knows, a few days or a week or whatever, you know, I did go back home and get clean, but I was right back at it. And that was not the first time. And
so when your dad was sick, you were just going back and forth to home, getting clean, and then going back to the world again, and well, going back to your habits. And then your dad, something happens with your dad. He starts going to church, right?
yeah.
And he gets saved.
Yes, in fact, all those years that my dad didn't serve the Lord, all those years, you know, he was going to claim to, I knew better, but he always claimed to, you know, be almost like an atheist. I mean, he just didn't want to, he did not want to bring himself to believe that God was real. And when my mother got saved all those years, you know, she had always planted seeds, always telling him about the Lord, always saying, you know, God wants you to serve him if you'll just surrender. And he never would. And so mama, you know, how the Bible, I remember the Bible says that the husband is sanctified by the wife and the wife by the husband. So little by her life, she was setting an example to him, even though we may not have seen it. Later on it did happen. So actually God did use the sickness to, you know, what the devil means for bad, God uses it for the good. And
Amen.
Really, it did happen. And he got sick, and those seizures were getting so bad. Who did he start calling on? He started calling on the Lord. And my mom was really praying for him and witnessing to him and talking to him about the Lord. And I remember he was starting to feel down and out, and he was starting to cry, and he was starting to question. Now this is when he's getting serious with God, because he's like, now why? Why am I having to go through this? And we would watch him. And I remember one day in particular, he was sitting on the couch, and he was sitting there just, why has this got to happen to me? And he's in tears. And so he gets up and he walks down the kitchen into the hallway and down to the bathroom. But when he comes back, and since he's been kind of sick and disoriented, he's dizzy, he's been having seizures, he's kind of going back and forth over the walls, coming back, trying to hold himself up. But he is bawling and he's crying his eyes out. He gets back to the couch, and I remember Mama asked him, you know, what's wrong? What happened? Why are you crying so hard? And he said that he was standing in the bathroom, and as if Jesus, yeah, I feel it. If Jesus was standing like right behind him, talking as if I'm talking. And he was, and my dad was sitting there going, Lord, why has this happened to me? Why all this? Why all these years? And he said that the voice came so clear, just like I'm talking behind him, and said, what about me all those years? And man, I got chills all over me. And he said that just absolutely tore, you know, just completely turned his world upside down. He was so convicted, because he said, and he got to telling us, he said never in his life did he realize that all those years that God cared about him and loved him, and he never talked to him.
That's right.
And that from that day forward, that's when he wanted to get saved. And God did save him, changed his life. I seen that man go from, like I said, he was always a gentleman, But, you know, in years before that, growing up, you know, he did a lot of illegal activities, selling drugs, and he was a businessman, a very big drug dealer. And but I seen that man give his life to the Lord, starts going to church, lifting his hands up in church, singing,
testifying.
and I'm like, and testifying to every person he come in contact with, telling them about Jesus. That's a dramatic change.
Amen. It is.
And you know, but to see that change, you would have thought that would have
changed you.
Changed me, because at one time I always wanted that from him. I always wanted to see him go to church, and when I was struggling as a teenager, I thought if I could ever get him, and he was serving the Lord, maybe me and him could get close and go to church together. But it kind of happened at a time when I was so bent towards the world that it was like it had an impact on me, but I just still chose to do those wrong things. And so I know it worried him. After he got saved, I can tell you that he was so sick that he got to the point where he couldn't drive. So after my dad couldn't drive anymore, then the Lord healed him, and he began driving again, and got back to normal. And later on in 2001, you know, God did give us time with him, about 2.5 years after the Lord touched him, extended his life so that we could spend more time with him. Then in about December, the end of December in 2001, and he started getting really sick. Then he passed away, and then from there,
that's when you started going downhill.
Yeah, that's when I really went downhill, because in fact, took me a long time to get over that and forgive myself and ask for forgiveness from the Lord, because I didn't make it to his funeral.
But while you were struggling, you know, we forgot to mention an important thing. While you were struggling and coming, you know, going to church, back and forth, you had someone
Yes.
that was a good friend to you and would actually take care of you, would invite you to eat, would encourage you. And who was that?
Steve Dean.
Who is now what?
Who is now my stepdad.
Yes.
Steve, and from the time, I think I met him when I was 14. So all those years, when my dad was not at home, many times Steve spent time with me, more like a dad to me. And so all those times I'm back and forth, he'd take me out to eat, spend time with me, talk to me about the Lord. He also worked and still works in a place where they help kids. And so he was also a counselor at that time as well. But he'd just spend time with me and try to encourage me, talk to me about the Lord, lift me up, let me know that, you know, my life does have a purpose. And so then after my dad died, he was still there, still spending time with me. He'd come over for, you know, Christmas, Thanksgiving. He became a part of the family. And still just a wonderful stepdad. And
Papa to our kids now.
Yeah, Papa to all of us. We call him Papa, and he's just been wonderful. He's always been a good example to me, and very thankful for him. So if it hadn't have been for him, you know, and that support and that encouragement, you know, I'd have probably been even worse off. And so I'm thankful for him being there. And
so what happened after your dad passes away? You were not part of the funeral or anything. Tell us what happened.
So I did take off when I found out that he was sick. When I found out that he had died or was dying, he was in hospice, and I just didn't want to see it. I didn't want to be there. I just ran. Somebody found me and told me it was going to happen, and I just decided I remember I was like at a crossroads, and I thought, I'm either going to go there, go through this, see him, go through the funeral, or I'm just gonna go to the world. And unfortunately, I chose the world, and it was hard for me to even get over that and try to forgive myself. I lived with that regret for years, and
by the world, you mean you just decided to walk away from that situation?
Yeah. He did tell my mom as he died that, you know, he loved me and forgive me. But so after that, you know, I just
your dad dies in December of
2001, and even though I did stay gone from home for a long time, I did come back after he had died. It was hard on Mama because she went through the whole thing by herself, and you know, there she is, worried about me. Her husband's died. You know, it was just a hard time for her. So
so when do you you said you came back, right? So
yes.
after you came back, what did you do?
I was kind of back and forth.
Whether to stay here and moving away, right?
Yes, I was back and forth from that time after he died, back and forth from home and going out and staying gone for weeks at a time, up until 2003. Or 2004 actually. In 2004, somewhere around 2003 to 2004.
It couldn't be 2004 because you would have been here whenever your Papa and Nina married.
Yeah, it had to be 2003. Mm-hmm. And I just decided one day that I'm just going to take off for good. And so I remember I just decided to take off. I went and did something I had never did before, stole a car. I was hanging around some people just getting high and doing drugs, living in a drug house, stole a car from there. I remember somehow I ended up not having that car. I can't remember what happened to it.
Wasn't that the car that was stolen?
I stole a stolen car. That was so funny when I shared that story, but
stole a stolen car.
But I remember I stole one car and ended up having to steal another car, and wound up in Atlanta, Georgia, and homeless. After I had done that, because I didn't have no money, then ran out of money, getting high. So once I'm gone that far, I don't know, I'm just out of my mind and thinking there's no turning back. I'm just gonna stay gone. So I stayed in Atlanta and just surviving. And sometime around the beginning of 2004, or around, no, it was after Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Somewhere around Christmas, I just decided to leave Atlanta. And then met up with this guy and started little by little making my way out of the state. And wound up hitchhiking, wound up going through city to city, state to state, wound up going all the way across the bottom of the U.S. I went all the way through Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, all the way through Texas. In a matter of months, make a long story short, by the time February or March got around, I am in California.
You ended up in California. Now, his family didn't know where he was.
No.
They didn't know when he left in 2004, right? 2003. That's when
2003, yeah.
That's when nobody knew where he was. And tell us what happened. Give us more details on the California. I know you stayed homeless there.
So when I got in California, I'm homeless. Never been to California in my life. Just running.
Eating out of the trash can. Say it.
Eating out of the trash can. Homeless.
No clothes.
No clothes, wearing the same clothes. That just makes me want to cry, because
I know, me too.
begging for money. living on the streets, doing just like anybody else.
This is when your testimony reminds me of the prodigal son, because he went from having it all, and I'm telling you, he had an apartment, he had a car, he had nice clothes, all the material things that you can think of. Brandon had. His parents took good care of him, but I do remember your mom saying that when she gave you to the Lord and say, you take control of him, that's when you went missing.
Yeah.
And Brandon gets to California, he doesn't have anything. In case you're watching this and you knew, I was not part of his life then. Brandon was I didn't meet Brandon until in 2006, but he experienced a lot of things in California that I want you guys to hear, because it gets worse, honestly, because he goes from being addicted to cocaine, and then he's introduced to a new drug.
So when I get to California, and this is 2004, I remember I stayed on the street almost 9 months. When I needed a shower, trying to find one of those places like a soup kitchen or a place that, will let you take a shower, like a shelter. And most of the time I'm living on the streets. I'm sleeping on cardboard. Found out where all the homeless people are staying, and they keep stacks and stacks of cardboard. And at nighttime I'm sleeping on the cardboard. And there's cockroaches. I mean, you imagine living and bugs running everywhere, and I'm out there homeless. And so I started hanging around. Obviously, now I'm starting to I need something. I feel empty, I need something. I need drugs. So I get introduced to crystal meth. That really did it. I was hooked. I started, I'm not going to be happy with just finding somebody that I can just go find some on the street, on the corner somewhere. Once I found it, I had to find out where it was coming from, because I was the type of person that wants to I want to get from the source. So the next thing you know, I found out where the main source is, and I started finding ways to make money. Yeah. So, believe it or not, I find ways to make money, collect cans, take them to the place where and in California you make pretty good money on cans. So I'd take bags and bags and bags of cans, and I pushed a cart. And I actually made a round, and I figured out a whole routine where I could go, and I could make $20, $30. And I would take that and go get high. I would take that and run to the liquor store and get some alcohol. And I done that every day for a while. And also run to the guy I had met. And it was sad to see people strung out on crystal meth in this guy's yard. And crystal meth will make you you just see people working on stuff all the time. And you'd see these guys just sitting around working on cars and knowing they'll never run. They just work themselves to death just for that drug, just staying high like a zombie. And that's the way I was. And so doing that, I stayed homeless for, like I said, almost 9 months. Finally found this place that I just decided I was ready to get off the street, and I found this place that gave me an opportunity to come in. It was not a Christian place. It was a place that would give opportunities for people who were homeless to get their lives straightened out, give you an opportunity to get on your feet, get a job, that kind of thing. And it was sort of like an outreach mission.
Is that the one that you have to go and knock door to door?
Yes. And unfortunately, this just goes to show you what kind of places are out there. They'd go from door to door knocking, asking for donations because they were 501c, I think it is, you know, where they're nonprofit.
Oh, yeah.
So they depend totally on donations. Everybody in that place was doing drugs. Everybody in that place was getting and drinking. They were all partying, smoking weed, you know, whatever. And even the guy who owned it he wasn't doing drugs.
Just don't give the name.
He wasn't drinking. He was just doing some other things.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to tell you no details, but all I know is the whole place was corrupt.
But it was not helping you. It was just helping
And it was not
you
helping me
to get your drugs.
Yeah, it just helped me actually to have a good place to sleep. I could take a shower, and I could go out and knock on doors, and I'm getting donations, and we get a percentage of it. And so I was just using that money to turn around and continue to get drunk. Now I have a place that I can do it at. I can hide my bedroom, and so this is just leading up, and I'm not going to take much time on this because this is leading up to the point of where I'm getting to the end of I'm done with drugs and alcohol. So
didn't you also end up in Mexico at one point?
And that's when it happened. I had been at this place for towards the end of 2004 into 2005, and I'll never forget it. It was July of 2005. I decided my birthday was coming up, and I remember that now. And I said I'm gonna leave the mission, and I told one of the boys, I said I'm gonna go to Tijuana, Mexico. And I had already heard about it, and it's
went.
Partyville. And so, right in San Diego is a border to Mexico, and so I took the trolley, and I didn't go back to the mission anymore. Went down there, and some places that I went to because I'm just looking for trouble.
Yeah.
And it was pretty scary.
Yeah. Someone even told you to go back to come
Yeah,
back.
I was going down through there, and I started getting off out of the outer skirts of town.
Yeah.
And I saw a van pull up, and there's several guys in it with AR-15s, assault rifles. They were the law, and they said, you need to go the other way.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm in the wrong part of town now.
Yes.
And so, but when I was down there, I bought more drugs. And
that's why you got a little bit worse.
yes.
Alright, so we're gonna stop here for now, and we will continue with part 3, and I think it's gonna be the last part. We hope and pray that this has been encouraging you so far. If you are new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe and to share this video. More than anything, we want to spread the goodness of God and what God can do to help you to overcome if you have addiction or anything that you're struggling with in life. We pray that, again, it's a great testimony, and we'll see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. God bless you.